Hail and well met, everybody. Welcome to Geek, Thyself, a show by nerds, for nerds,
who love geeking out over random facts and esoteric trivia. My name is Heather.
I'm Russell.
And we'll be your hosts for this journey through the wondrous land of information.
Hi guys, we're back with another fun tale of Harry Potter misadventures.
Hi.
And changes between a book and films. As we saw last week, we did 3 films in about an hour or so, however long the episode is. There's a lot of changes, and we're now going to do the rest of them. So strap yourself in, because we're still going strong. Oh boy.
Right, one thing too, in case you couldn't tell from the way Russ was introducing this, is that there's a lot more changes in this second half. There's a lot of things they changed more in the later films.
The film started to branch out just more in general and missed out other side plots and cut out even more classes and even more Quidditch. That's just how this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We will try to maybe focus just on the important bits.
Alright, so starting off with Book 4 and Film 4, Goblet of Fire.
Yes. Yep. First thing that's sort of omitted is the whole Riddle family murder. It's not talked about within the movie, but it is obviously talked about quite detailedly in the book.
Yeah, a lot of things get kind of... So the easiest way to describe this, to just kind of sum up all of it, because there's a lot of little bits and pieces, is that in the book, everything that has to do with Tom Riddle, so basically Voldemort's origin story, all those little pieces that you learn in Book 4, a lot of it got cut from the movie. A lot of it got either glossed over very quickly and condensed, or just completely left out entirely. Yeah, they I think what they did is they kept in the parts that they felt were most necessary, and then they cut a lot of the rest of it. But it was definitely very interesting if you go back and read the books to see all the little details that got left out. It's also lots of little bits and pieces, like the Bill and Charlie Weasley don't come up at all in the movie, and you don't see Weasley's wizard wheezes. Like, none of it doesn't get mentioned specifically that the brothers George and Fred are working on this scheme to create this business. You see the candies in the movie. Some of the candies are being sold and causing chaos, but they never specifically say that they're doing it.
Yeah, they don't say that it's their actual business and they're the ones creating the stuff.
Right.
Also, that's completely skipped in this film is going back to the Privet Drive. Harry wakes up from his nightmare at the Burrow already, which in the book he wakes up at home and is there's a whole section with him at home being picked up. That's just completely omitted.
Yeah, by the Weasleys and all the chaos that ensues from that situation.
That's completely omitted.
Yeah. One thing that gets left out of this book that I actually... Okay, so of all of the things they cut from Goblet of Fire, this is the one thing where I'm like, thank you for cutting it, because it wasn't necessary to the rest of the story, and that was the house elves situation.
The spew?
Yes, spew.
S-P-E-W.
So, for anyone who hasn't read the books and has only watched the movies, in the books there is a character called Winky, who's a house elf, and she is a house elf at Hogwarts. So she's one of the house elves that works for Hogwarts, and Hermione decides that even though the house elves like being labor force, that they're not being treated well and things like that. And it's this whole weird situation of the house elves are happy serving. They're like the way they're little magical creatures, and the way they're designed, they like to be serving someone. And it's not like Hogwarts treats them badly. You know,
No.
they're very well treated at Hogwarts, but Hermione, coming from the Muggle world, is like, no, they don't have good working conditions and the labor laws and da-da-da-da, all of this kind of stuff, and spends a good chunk of the fourth book creating an organization called SPEW.
Yes, or SPEW, which is the Society for the Protection of Elfish Welfare.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful idea, but the fact is it goes against how the house elves are feeling about themselves. Also, something that's cut out, like within this bit, is Dobby returns in Goblet of Fire. He doesn't. He isn't part of the film, which is a shame. His parts are given to other characters.
Yeah.
After being removed from the employ of the Malfoys, he seeks paid work, and Dumbledore offers him paid work, and he is paid for working at Hogwarts. So it's not even about being a slave,
right?
So
yeah, no, it's made very clear in the books, in my opinion, that though they might not be getting paid with money for their work, that the house elves at Hogwarts are very well taken care of. They are not being abused by people or anything like that.
No, that's made very clear, especially from Dobby's perspective, where he was abused in his previous by
job. The Malfoys, which surprises no one.
No, so that whole bit is skipped. Another bit that is completely removed from Goblet of Fire is Ludo Bagman. He's a fairly important character for the book. He's one of the judges of the Triwizard Tournament in the book. Obviously, he isn't in the films. And he has a bit more of a developed plot with Harry, and the reason he's trying to help him win the tasks is because he's in a load of debt.
And he placed a bet on Harry.
Yes. To win. This also comes up more with Fred and George giving him all their money on a bet, which they are right and they are not paid back for. So they spend a lot of the movie or a lot of the book trying to get in contact with him about getting their money.
Right, which never happens in the films. None of it comes up. To be fair, they probably didn't want to show underage gambling.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. That's fair.
I'm sure that's a portion of it. Along the same lines of cutting out Dobby, the only thing I don't like about the fact that they didn't bring up the other house elves is that they left out Winky.
Yes.
I did like Winky as a character. Winky is a house elf who was working at Hogwarts, and I'm blanking on the exact pattern of events, but she ends up getting essentially released from Hogwarts, or like freed or fired or...
No. What happens is she was the house elf to Ludo Barty Crouch.
That's right.
And she is removed from her position because, unknown to everyone else, she let Barty Crouch Jr. slip away from her. That is why Barty Crouch fires her, and then she is employed by Hogwarts later.
That's right. I remember that now. But she spends a good chunk of the time hanging out with Dobby and being really sad for herself and drinking butterbeer.
Yes, it's butterbeer.
Which makes house elves drunk.
Yes, it's not very strong, but it is strong for house elves.
Yeah. And a lot of the scenes that take place in the Hogwarts kitchens in the fourth book involve all of the house elves.
Yes, and that's not shown at all.
Yeah.
Again, another element that's completely skipped is in the book, Dobby is the one who finds gillyweed to give to Harry. Because Dobby is not brought back for Goblet of Fire, that is then given to Neville.
Yeah.
Again, it makes sense for his character to know about it, but it's not who's originally had that bit.
Yeah. Other little things that got cut out that were not necessarily life-changing in terms of the way the movies came out, but one thing that was downplayed in the movies was Percy's work with the Ministry.
Yes.
So, Percy Weasley in the movies, you see him working with the Ministry, but it's not talked up as much. In the books, every time you see Percy, he's going off for way longer than you want him to about all of the amazing things that are happening at the Ministry and all the amazing things that his boss is doing, and you just wish he would shut up. And they didn't touch on it very much at all in the movies.
Yeah.
Especially in book 4, it's not mentioned as much as it is especially in the 4th movie, it's not as mentioned as much as it is in the book. And one of the things that did mean got left out was the fact that Percy essentially betrays his family.
Yes, he does.
He sides with the Ministry over his family. Which, as you can imagine, for the Weasleys, that's a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, because when Harry says that Voldemort's returned, the Ministry immediately goes into not believing Harry, whereas that is proven to be the wrong decision to make there. But...
Right. Whereas all of the Weasleys and a lot of his other friends, and several of the teachers, all of them are like, no, he's back. We believe Harry. But Percy is the only Weasley who refuses to believe Harry because the Ministry says something different. So basically, it's huge fights between Percy and the rest of the family, and it's a big falling out. And you can tell that there's distance between Percy and the other brothers and everything in the movies, but it's not as obvious and it's not as brutal as it is in the book. Where in the book, it's like straight up, he betrayed his family, and he's not disowned, but he's removed himself from the Burrow. He doesn't live there anymore. And it's a very strong, like, cut line in the sand sort of situation.
Yeah. Even though both Mr. Weasley and Percy work in the Ministry, they don't talk or they're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very tense situation that's completely cut.
Yeah, and
carry on.
I was just going to say, I do feel like that is something that should have been more included. I don't think they necessarily needed to let Percy go on as long as he does in some of the books, but I do wish they'd included at least some sort of discussion of why Percy's not around and the fact that this sort of situation happened, because I feel like it got downplayed in the movies, and then it makes less sense later on why so many of the brothers are so meh whenever Percy comes around.
Yeah, definitely. Another element of the film that is skipped is Barty Crouch Sr.'s madness and him returning to Hogwarts after breaking out from his Imperious Curse put onto him by Barty Crouch Jr. or Mad-Eye Moody, who's pretended to be Mad-Eye Moody in the movie. That isn't shown at all, along with the subsequent killing of him that is skipped as well.
Yeah, one thing that also gets left out of the fourth movie is all of the ways that Barty Crouch Jr. did what he did, disguised as Mad-Eye Moody, like how he got Harry through stuff, how he escaped Azkaban, all those kinds of things. In the movie, he doesn't explain them all.
No, in the book, he goes on a big...
monologue.
Monologue of how that all happened.
Yeah.
Along with how he got his name to be the only one in a fourth school for the Dry Wizard tournament. All of those sort of things that come up then.
Mm-hmm.
The next big thing that is sort of missed is the tournament winnings that Harry earns, 1,000 galleons, that's given to Fred and George for their joke shop.
Yeah.
That's not mentioned because the joke shop business hadn't even been mentioned at this point. So both bits are omitted.
Yeah, that's another thing that I wish they had included.
Yes, I do as well.
So in the books, it's very obvious that Harry Potter is not only devastated that Cedric was killed. Like, he's devastated that his friend, that this happened to his friend, and he's also angry that people are not listening and they're not doing anything and they won't believe him and that it could happen to more people.
Yeah.
In the movie, they focused a lot more just on him being frustrated and angry that people weren't listening, and they didn't show as much of his devastation.
No, they didn't.
One of the scenes that happens in the book that I really wish they had included in the movie It would have been very, very sad on top of an already sad ending. But in the book, one of the things that happens is after the tournament, when Harry is given his winnings and declared the Triwizard Tournament winner and all that stuff, one of the things that happens is he goes and he tries to give the money to Cedric's parents.
Yes, he does. And they refuse to take it.
Yeah. They refuse to take it, and they, if I'm remembering correctly, they thank him for bringing their son back because Harry...
They do.
Harry specifically made sure to bring Cedric's body back.
Mm-hmm. Because in the scene where they can talk because of the connection with the wands, Harry is asked to take Cedric's body back.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't not do it. Which was a really, really emotional scene, and I really kind of wish that it was put onto the screen as well.
Yeah, and then after Cedric's parents say no to taking the money, that they don't want it, Harry is still he's so devastated by what happened that he doesn't want anything to do with the money. He doesn't want to keep it. He doesn't want to acknowledge it. He basically feels like it's blood money. I don't think they put it that way in the book, but he basically feels like it's blood money and he doesn't want it. But he also, it's money. He's not going to just toss it and in a ditch somewhere because it could help somebody. So he ends up giving it to Fred and George so that they can use it to start their joke shop because they're his friends. They've stood by him the whole time. They believe him without question about the whole Voldemort coming back and everything. Mm-hmm. And he feels like that people basically should get some happiness out of this money that was the result of so much tragedy.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Also, within the book, he's at this point says that if you guys don't take this money, I'm throwing it down the drain.
Yeah. He absolutely wants nothing to do with that money, and he doesn't need the money on top of it.
No, he doesn't.
But he and I think he also tells them this little piece was cute, so I was also sad they cut it. You know where I'm going.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
When he gives them the money, that they're flabbergasted because it's a huge sum of money, especially because the Weasleys are not rich people.
No, they're not.
And he basically tells them, start your joke shop and buy Ron a better set of dress robes.
Yes, because within the film he is using his great aunt's dress robes, which do not suit him at all.
No.
So, yes, that's basically the only stipulation he gives them for taking that money.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
But yeah, it was a very powerful scene, and I was sad they cut all of that out.
Yeah, and they also cut the whole ending of those scenes where Sirius is revealed to Snape as being an Animagus, because obviously Sirius has been staying close to the school because of being worried about Harry. There's a whole element of those needing to come out now that Voldemort's back, and then there's rows between the Ministry, and that all happens in, I think it's the hospital wing? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the hospital wing. All of that happens within that. And that is when the Ministry and Dumbledore just split on their opinions. But it's a really emotionally charged scene, and I really do wish it was in the book.
Yeah.
In the film.
I wish they'd added more.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but that basically wraps up Goblet of Fire, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but those are also missing bigger elements. Within the first few books, it was more small changes to characters and names and readjusting. This is the first thing where big side plots have been taken out. So,
yeah.
As in the same thing with Goblet of Fire, Quidditch isn't shown at all in The Order of the Phoenix.
No.
No, it's not even shown that Ron becomes part of the team. It's not shown anything of it.
And there's a lot of little things that get left out about that, like the fact that who's doing what changes, and because there's no Quidditch, it never comes up really that Professor Umbridge bans Harry and George from
playing Quidditch.
Yeah, from ever playing Quidditch again because they attacked Malfoy. Now, Malfoy insulted their mothers, so he 100% provoked this attack, just to be clear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that gets left out.
this is also another reason as to why Fred and George are even more intent on leaving early. They don't care about getting their NEWTs. They've got enough money to get a joke shop, which they have already in the plan of getting it sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as in most of the books, they open up earlier. There's a whole extra scenes with Harry trying to listen in on the Muggle news to see if Voldemort was doing things in the sort of public eye and stuff, and him worrying about that always happening. Whereas in the film, it opens later when he's been caught and asked to be moved along, and goes up to the park just before he's attacked by Dementors with Dudley.
Right.
So yeah, and then most of the Grimmauld Place is skipped, like within the Order of Phoenix, like them cleaning it out, them getting there, them talking about Ron and Hermione being prefects. That's not mentioned in the film at all. All of Weasley's with Weasley's new items like extendable ears, they only get a brief introduction. Cleaning out the house is completely skipped. Most of the Order meetings are skipped. There's only the one that's actually brought up with talking about everything to Harry, and even then they don't cover everything. It's just that is all condensed for the film, but that also in that cut there is them trying to pry open a locket, which none of the family can get open, and they end up throwing it away. Which turns out to be important later when they discover that is one of Voldemort's Horcruxes.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why they couldn't get it open, which makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of little bits and pieces.
Yeah, there's extra rooms in the Department of Mysteries that are skipped.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of Umbridge's decrees that she introduces while she's at the school, and then while she's serving headmaster when Dumbledore is ousted.
Yeah, they get kind of glossed over.
Yeah, like I said, this is where they start missing a lot.
Yeah, because you see the signs going up in the movie. Like, you see them putting up the different decrees, and you can see the ridiculous number of decrees. But they don't go into just how awful some of them are.
No, they also don't go into much detail about the fact that no one is learning practical defense against the dark arts anymore.
No.
It's all theory. And Dumbledore's army is not skipped, but a lot of their sessions are, and some people are cut who were there. What is cut is Marietta getting affected by the sneak pimples for going to Umbridge about the location and stuff, which yes, she did under Veritaserum, but that is skipped.
Yeah, well, in the book, it's a different character that snitches on Dumbledore's army. Yes. I'm trying to remember who she is. I think she was a friend of. Is she's the one that
Marietta Edgecombe.
Yeah, she was a friend of Cho.
Cho.
Wasn't that it?
She was.
She kind of got dragged to Dumbledore's army. She didn't really want to go, whereas Cho Chang did. But in the movie, Cho Chang is the one who gave up Dumbledore's army, although, like Russ just said, she did it under Veritaserum. It's not like she did it because she wanted to.
Most everything about Frank and Alice Longbottom is cut as well, especially them going to St Mungo's when Arthur Weasley's attacked by the snake Nagini. Both Gilderoy Lockhart, who is at St Mungo's still recovering from memory loss, and Neville's parents, which are still recovering from their torture many years earlier.
Yeah.
That's completely cut as well.
Yeah, there's information that you learn about, basically they see Neville there. Is that the one where they see Neville there?
No, I don't think they even do. I think, no, because they never actually go to St Mungo's, that's the thing.
No, but I mean in the book.
Yes, because they see Gilderoy Lockhart, and then they see Neville, and
his grandmother and his parents, because his parents had been affected by
tortured to insanity.
the Cruciatus curse, and tortured to the point of insanity. And so they
Bellatrix Lestrange and Barty Crouch Jr.
Yes, so they ended up there, but you don't see any of those scenes. So when, in my opinion, they should have at least shown bits and pieces of them, because it definitely would have made more sense when Neville and Harry are staring at the picture of their parents in the original Order of the Phoenix.
Where the original Order of the Phoenix photo.
Yeah, and they also cut out most of the testing scenes.
Yes, they cut out Harry's detentions with Umbridge from the first one, because he has multiple detentions cutting into his skin every time.
Yeah, that's true.
They skip over all the other ones.
Yeah.
The big thing that is skipped is Sirius's death and the aftermath of it, where Harry is just so done and destroys Dumbledore's office. That doesn't happen, which again not needed, but also really needed for the character. Like, you can definitely understand why he would feel so much grief.
Yeah.
Just every time he gets something good, it gets taken away from him.
Right. Well, and it's one of those things, too, where if you don't want to have the character destroy someone's office, that's fine. You don't have to. There's ways you could work around it. You could have had him destroy anything, or just be angry and flinging things around somewhere to show how upset and distraught. Like, there's a lot of things they could have done, and they show Harry being upset, but they don't show the extent of it, because in the books it's made very clear that essentially Harry had started to look at Sirius as a father figure.
Yeah,
because he'd never had a real one before. His uncle Vernon does not treat him like his own son at all, whereas Sirius pretty much always has treated him more like a son.
With his best interest at heart and all that kind of thing. He's always been there. It's very clear that Harry has a deep connection to Sirius.
Yeah. So when Sirius is killed in Order of the Phoenix, it's a huge blow to Harry, especially I can't remember if this was in the movie or not, but in the book there's a specific scene before Sirius dies where he basically tells Harry, I want you to come live with me, once we get everything cleared up and people know that I'm not.
That does happen in the film. It's not quite as in depth, but yes, it does happen.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So in the book they go into a lot more detail about how ecstatic Harry is that this is going to be happening. He's finally going to get to leave the Dursleys and all this kind of stuff. He's finally going to have a family. And I mean, it happens in the movie. I vaguely remember the scene. It happens in the movie, but it's not nearly as in depth.
No, it isn't.
And
it's one of those scenes that's skipped in the initial element of them being at Grimmauld Place. I think it's brought up at the Christmas time when they're there.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that, there's all of the owls and their exams are cut except for the one which involves Professor McGonagall being attacked and taken out of commission. All the rest of them are cut. The only other really important thing that isn't covered is Harry doing his honest interview with Rita Skeeter, who was the reporter from the last film. Okay. Oh, no, everything else is kind of covered. The only bits that kind of aren't are like how they get to the Ministry and then going through the Department of Secrets. They don't go through all the multiple rooms, like you said, like to find the prophecy and all that kind of thing.
Right.
And they also don't find the veil before they go into the encounter, like, because obviously in the book they come across the veil first, have a bit of a discussion about it, and then the fight happens in the same room with the veil. That's just not that doesn't happen in the film like that. They cut out the original the first scene of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right, we have 2 books left. So I think now we're doing 2, we should perhaps do a quick ad break?
Sure. Okay, so welcome to the mid-break, everybody. So to start off, like always, we're going to talk about World Anvil, which is an amazing world-building website and campaign management website. It's worldanvil.com. You can go check them out. An initial membership is free, and then beyond that, if you want any of the extra perks and amazing little pieces and add-ons that they have that are available, you can pay a little extra, and there's different levels depending on what you're comfortable with, but there's amazing features like map building and linking different characters, and you can have journals for different characters, and they've got another part of it called Heroes, where you can basically almost have like a journal or social media for your character on the site. It's really amazing. Can't recommend them enough. worldanvil.com.
Also sponsoring the Nerdsmith Network are Die Hard Dice. They have been for a while. They're great people. As in their name, they create beautiful, stunning polymer dice and metal dice, which they create all their molds for. The colours for them are fantastic. They have their own Spellbinder series, which is where they do dual colour D20s, well, not even D20s, full metal sets, which are always gorgeous. They've got Phoenix and Royal and Fey Queen, which are all just dual colours. I actually got a Fey Queen very recently, and it's so gorgeous in person. The pictures don't do it justice. They also have started doing their accessories, like the Scroll of Rolling we've talked about, which can hold 2 sets of full 7 dice, and have a rolling mat so you can do play D&D on the go, which who doesn't need more D&D in their life. And they now have their breakdown by classes as to how you can search for certain dice sets. So if you're looking for dice for a specific character, feel free to use that. If you do find a set that you like, you can use the code Geek, Thyself to get 15% off your first or next order. That's 15. So yeah, if you want to roll with the best, go to dieharddice.com.
Yeah. All right, and then please don't forget to go to nerdsmith.org. That is Geek Thyself's parent network. You can go there and check out all of the other amazing shows. We've got a bunch of different amazing podcasts, whether you're into actual play podcasts that deal with different types of role-playing games. We also have podcasts that deal with things like which monster would you want to go on a date with? And there's everything in between. And that's nerdsmith.org, and you can go check out all of those amazing shows.
Okay, so now we're jumping back into Half-Blood Prince.
I'm just gonna let you take it away with this one, because I know this one especially is your bane.
We've arrived at you. Okay, so just as a sort of point, I adore The Half-Blood Prince as a book. It's probably my favourite in the whole series, which is why the film irritates me so much. There's quite a few changes. Not all of them are massive, but a few of them feel like it's very cheap to take them away, especially from this book and this film, but we'll get into it because yeah, we will. Within the first scenes within this book, like most of them, they cut off some of the start. Within this one, there's actually a scene with the UK Prime Minister and the Minister for Magic having a meeting, having a meeting and him reminiscing on past meetings they've had. And then this is also the first time that the Ministry are now admitting that Voldemort is back, because you can't really deny it after you see Voldemort at the Ministry of Magic.
Well, and the Death Eater symbol being thrown up all over the place.
Yes, they finally have to concede that yes, Harry was right, Dumbledore was right, and that is something that is omitted, it's skipped. So yeah, and pretty much all of the Pretty much all of the chapter is admitted, including all of the murders, hurricanes, and bridge collapses that have been happening, which all look like natural disasters for the Muggles, are actual just Death Eaters creating problems now that their leader is in the open. They're being more aggressive.
Yeah, all of that gets cut out, and instead we open up on a scene where Harry is reading the Daily Prophet in a Muggle cafe.
Yes, and is reading about Rufus Scrimshaw being becoming the new Minister for Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, after lying about Voldemort being back for a year, you don't really get to keep your job as Minister.
Not so much.
No, not really. Back going into Harry's setup, obviously in the film he's reading and then has a bit of a chat with the waitress who works there, and then is taken by Dumbledore to go and see Horace Slughorn. In the book, it's a little different. He's still at Privet Drive. Harry is waiting for Harry receives a letter from Dumbledore about him being picked up and taken to the Burrow for the rest of the holidays, along with him asking for help on another matter, which turns out to be to recruit Horace Slughorn as potions master for the school.
Yeah.
But the whole of the house scenes are skipped, which includes Creature now being owned by Harry.
Yeah, because he inherited everything that belonged to Sirius Black.
So yeah, that happens. Dumbledore obviously spends some time talking to the Dursleys while he's there, which again doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That is all skipped. They go straight to trying to recruit Horace.
Yeah, and there's a lot of little things that get cut out of the interaction with Horace Slughorn. Things like Dumbledore asking Harry to make him appear more fragile by letting Dumbledore lean on him and stuff like that. And
basically just a lot has been cut to get to Diagon Alley, which is where they first see Fred George's shop, which is Weasley's Wizarding Wheezes. That's like the first big scene for that, which even then is still heavily cut down. Now we're actually on this bit. This is where I'm going to talk about this in a more general sense, because a lot of these little things were cut out from this book, including this whole storyline with Voldemort giving Draco the job of getting the Death Eaters into Hogwarts. It's the only thing that's really shown is him trying to get the cabinet working, but there's no reason as to why.
Yeah, there's no context given in the film. All of the context scenes are cut.
Yeah, like the context scene on the train for this is completely cut. There's still an altercation between Harry and Draco, but the actual conversation about Draco not returning possibly at the end of the school year, that's cut. What else is cut? Again, pretty much all of Quidditch is cut. Very little is still there, which is something that comes up a lot. Most of the Slug Club meetings are cut. There's only a couple of times that they actually all get together. What else? This one. Pretty much all of Harry and Ginny's relationship is cut. And also the internalized sort of feelings that Harry has brewing throughout the whole film, throughout the whole book are cut.
Yeah, I mean,
very little there.
That would have been, to be fair, I do think they tried to portray it, but 99...
They didn't do a good... Yeah.
They didn't do a good job of portraying it, but the problem is, so, again, for anyone who hasn't read the books, in the book of the Half-Blood Prince, there's all of this inner monologue for Harry where he's getting, upset whenever he sees Ginny with her boyfriend, Dean, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Whenever he sees them together or when they're kissing or anything, he's internally very upset, and he's kind of trying to figure out why. and
Yeah.
he finally figures it out. But it's all throughout the book. There's these little snippets of him having these feelings, and of course, as you're reading the book, you're like, oh, dude, you like her, right? What's hard to understand about this? You like her. But
Yeah.
in the movie, because they couldn't do the inner monologue stuff really, it was harder for them, I
Yeah.
think, to get it across, and they
Yes,
just didn't do a
that's-
great job.
No, they still shared their sort of kiss after the Quidditch match, which again, it's not explained why Harry wasn't there. Like, or at least they don't show the detention with Snape before it. But they don't show any of the relationship afterwards where they actually get to know each other more. So that's the sort of bit that annoys me. Not the sort of internalized feelings beforehand, just that it's not exactly brought to the forefront as it should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's other relationship stuff also that gets kind of cut out.
Yes.
Like the relationship between Tonks and Lupin.
Yes, it's only ever implied, and only very briefly.
In the movies, yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't come up much. But the biggest issue that I have with this film is that this film is about Voldemort's backstory. Oh, sorry, the book is totally concerning Dumbledore teaching Harry about Voldemort's past, and they cut so much of it out.
Yeah, it is a problem.
Yes, because this is the part where we're learning about his backstory, learning about how he'd learned how to create Horcruxes, which again comes from Slughorn, which is, like, even that is glossed over. Like, about they need, all of the other smaller memories are not done at all, like him getting the cup and the locket and all of those items, him going back to the Gaunt house, all of them are cut, and it cheapened the whole film a little bit for me.
I can understand why they cut some of it. Like, if they had included every single piece, it just would have been too long, and I completely get that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think they cut too much.
They cut a lot of things that could have been important, while leaving in certain things that maybe could have been shorter. The other thing that they really cut a lot of is the discussion of who the Half-Blood Prince was.
Yes.
Like, the film is called The Half-Blood Prince, and so is the book. But the Half-Blood Prince themselves is mentioned so very sparingly.
Yeah, whereas in the book, it's this whole thing is Harry is trying to figure out who is the Half-Blood Prince, who is this.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal in the book. He's trying to figure it out, and he starts to think that there's something possibly more sinister or dark about the person. So he starts wondering, could it be Voldemort? Because Voldemort's father was a Muggle, so he's a half-blood.
Yes.
Like, there's all these kinds of things that keep coming up, and none of it is in the movie.
Yeah, and it's not even really mentioned that Snape is the Half-Blood Prince in the book. Not in the book, in the film. It's confirmed.
It's, like,
at the
glossed
end of the
over.
book. Yeah, it's confirmed at the end of the book when Snape is taking Draco with him because of after murdering Dumbledore. But even in the in the film, it's not mentioned at all. So that's what I mean. With this film, there's an awful lot missing to me personally, which really does start to matter.
Yeah, it's a lot of the backstory type of stuff where it may not have been as sensational necessarily, so they decided to cut down some of it, but I feel like they should have cut other scenes first.
Yeah. Along with that, they really glossed over Harry being a Quidditch captain. Like, it's maybe got one scene.
Yeah, basically, the short version of discussing this movie versus book would be if you ever watched Half-Blood Prince and found yourself wondering, but wait, what about this? And what about that?
Yeah.
And what about this? And wait, how did that happen? What was Draco doing? Why? How did this happen? All of those bits and
Yeah.
pieces that you didn't understand because there was pieces missing, go read the book.
Yeah.
They're all in the book.
Yeah. It's... Yeah. And also, another bit that's completely missed is Dumbledore's burial.
Yes. Yeah, they left out all of it.
Yeah, and then they reference it in the next film, but they didn't show it. It's... Yeah, this film bugs me quite a bit, because it's, like I said, it's my favourite book. Mm-hmm. But they miss so much of it.
There's lots and lots of little pieces that they left out. And, like, one thing that got left out at the end of the book when they're in the Great Hall and everyone is really sad and they're basically saying goodbye to Dumbledore. So in the movie, they do show it. But if you look up to the ceiling, they've turned off the magic for the stars in the sky.
Yeah.
But in the... One thing that's different is that in the book, it's specifically mentioned that is a sign of mourning. Mm. It's being done as like a sign of mourning for Dumbledore, that they've turned that off.
Yeah.
Whereas in the movie, it's just they did it and they showed it, but it's not really explained by anyone. And I'm not sure how they would have explained it by someone, but it's little things like that where you're like... If you're watching the movie and you haven't read the book, you're going to sit there and be like, huh, that's different, but you're not going to necessarily know why.
So, for the sake of this film missing so many important key bits from the penultimate story of this whole book...
Mm-hmm.
The penultimate book of this whole story. Wow, that was bad. I got that completely mixed up. But there's a lot missing, which... You can obviously understand that they can't put everything in, but the amount of stuff that they missed really made the film just less impactful, especially for me, who love the Half-Blood Prince as a book.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite enough that we all need to say on that book. But in general, those are the main plots that are either scrapped entirely or very much downplayed, and is frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay, so Deathly Hallows. Alright.
That was a big sigh.
Sorry.
Yeah, a lot of
that was a big sigh.
Several of the later movies have more changes, and in some cases, it's because of things they changed in earlier movies.
Yes, it is.
And to be fair, when they first started the movies, the last books were not done yet. So
no, they weren't.
In the very beginning, there are a few continuity issues simply because they didn't know how important some of these characters were going to be. So sometimes things got shifted around or given to a different character, and then down the road you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But it's too late.
Yeah. Yes, it is. But, I mean, they didn't have that excuse for when they were doing 6. But, yes.
Well, yeah.
Like I said, 6 I hold just a personal grudge against. But it's fine, because we're done talking about 6. We'll move on to Deathly Hallows.
Yes.
For the most part, Deathly Hallows, because of it being two-parters, or a two-part film, they do actually cover quite a bit of the story. There's less cut out.
Yeah, that's true.
At least, yes.
Honestly, if they wanted to do justice to Deathly Hallows, I don't think there's a way they could have made it just one movie. There's just no way, because there's so much that happens, and it's a lot of it is so important and ties up so many loose ends. Yeah, one thing that's different, too, is that in the beginning of the movie, we see articles talking about the lies of Albus Dumbledore and all this kind of stuff, but we don't actually get to learn what any of the story says that much. We find out later.
Also, something that isn't mentioned in Order of the Phoenix that we missed is the mirror that was given to him in the book by Sirius. That wasn't mentioned in Order of the Phoenix. So where the fragment of mirror come from with Aberforth's eye in is basically unexplained.
That's right.
Just a small change in the Seven Potters is that everyone heads to the burrow.
Yeah, they were trying to make it less obvious that they were headed to the burrow. So they separated and went to 7 different locations associated with the Order of the Phoenix. And then from there, they were going to use port keys to get to the burrow. Yeah, in the book, the wedding and the celebration and the fact that everybody actually has something happy to celebrate is much more talked up. Like, everyone is really ecstatic because there's actually something happy to be talking about.
And then, obviously, the Death Eaters come and Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to leave to Grimmauld Place.
Yep. Yeah.
So, again, a lot of backstory stuff that would be nice to know is kind of omitted. Again, just a lot of the Ministry is cut out. Again, just a lot of those sort of bits of cut. The Muggle-born Registration Commission.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and for anyone who's interested, that is exactly what it sounds like if you've never read the books. In the books, there's something called the Muggle-born Registration Commission, and it's literally a bunch of witches and wizards who are registering anyone that was born from Muggle parents. So, like, Hermione would be on the list.
Yes, and because of Voldemort having distinct issues with that and having wormed his way into the Ministry, pretty much anyone without an identifiable cause was guilty.
Yep.
They do keep them going to the ultimate place the same, because obviously they have to shake off somebody who nearly joins them with their apparition out of the Ministry. And Ron still gets very much damaged by that, by splinching his arm open. And then from that point there on, the tents move, which is fairly accurate to a lot of the things. Obviously, they move pretty much daily, and that's not done in the film.
No, they don't show every single move, but to be fair, they wouldn't have had time to show every single move.
Oh, no, absolutely not. They do show a few of them. They do show different places and different settings for where they were.
Yeah.
Potter Watch isn't mentioned at all, which is the radio station that is run off the grid to basically keep people informed on everything that the Dark Lord is doing.
Yeah.
They go... I'm trying to remember, is Godric's Hollow in the first film? I think it is. That's the thing, it's difficult to remember...
Because they blur together.
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's in the first film.
I think it's at least somewhat in the first film.
Oh no, it has to be, because Harry loses his wand.
That's right.
And he starts using the Death Eater wand. So yes, it definitely is in that film. So yeah, they do that bit. That bit is fairly accurate to the story. There's nothing glaringly obvious that's missed. They do go to the gravestone.
So at this point, there's a lot that actually didn't get cut.
Yes.
This is the point where this is the point where it started becoming more accurate to the books, because at this point there were so many things that they couldn't really change a lot of stuff.
No.
One thing that was different, and it was at the very, very end.
Yes, we were literally about to say the same thing, but carry on. It's like, I like how we both realised, that was different.
Great minds think alike. In the movie, at the very end of the book, Harry Potter breaks the undefeated... I can't remember, my brain just blanked on what the wand is called.
Elder Wand.
Thank you, the Elder Wand. He breaks the Elder Wand and, tosses it over the side. And in the...
Before fixing his own wand, I will add.
Yeah.
Before fixing his own wand...
Yes, and from what I recall of the book, and it's been a while since I read that book, he fixed his wand and then put the Elder Wand back with Dumbledore in his tomb.
Yes, he did. Is one of the biggest changes between the two is how the final confrontation happens. Obviously, in the book, there's a massive back and forth conversation between the two. Whereas in the film, it's more just one battle and that's it. In the book, there's a big drawn out talk about everything that's happened and why Voldemort can't win this fight.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily have a problem with the book ending, with the film ending. It's certainly not as good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible. I do wish there was more talking. I think that's something I do wish in the later books, in the later films, there was more of. Is there
explanations.
Was more, yeah, like, I know exposition isn't a great thing in films, but with this integrated story, cutting it all out was a bit of a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely could have, I think, still put some more of it in than what they did, and I think it would have made it less confusing for people who've never read the books.
Yes.
I think part of the problem is that some of the things they cut, they were going into it with the assumption that that it wouldn't matter because you've already read the book.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make for a good movie.
No. But actually, I've just remembered something else that was missed. Is Percy coming back in Deathly Hallows to help with the fight.
That's right.
That is missed. Which is quite important, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's important. Okay, in the movies, that particular aspect isn't as important because they don't show how much of a divide there is between Percy and the rest of the Weasleys. Whereas in the book, because there's been such this huge division between the Weasleys and Percy, the fact that at the end Percy shows up to help them fight is a very big deal.
Yes, and he's also there at the point where Fred dies.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. One thing also that I wish they'd included was the fact that, like, some of the wrap-up stuff. So I understand it's already a long movie and they're trying to focus on the main characters, but there's a lot of little bits and pieces that didn't get gone over at the end of the series, when you see all of them as adults watching their kids get onto the train.
Yes.
Now, that scene was more or less the same. There were a couple of characters that didn't get mentioned as much in it as they do in the book, but nothing, like, earth-shattering. There is one thing, though, that always bothered me.
Yes.
And it specifically has to do with the Percy thing, actually. So it's, in the book, there's a ton of exposition on what happens to people after the battle at Hogwarts. You find out a lot of bits and pieces, and admittedly, they didn't do this in any of the other movies, so maybe it's why they didn't want to include any in the last movie. But you see so many movies out there where, you know, someone has a voiceover talking about, and after this happened, all of these things occurred. And it's like a little mini montage where the main character is explaining to you what happened to different people so that you get a wrap up on everybody. And it would have been very, very easy for them to do that for Harry Potter, because the last scene is him and Ginny and Ron and Hermione all taking their kids to the Hogwarts Express to go to school. It would have been incredibly easy for them to, you know, lead into it with Harry giving a quick, like, recap of what happened for everybody, and then at the end having him say something about, and now I'm here with Ginny for our second son to go off to Hogwarts. Yeah. And then they could have just led into the scene. Yeah. There was easily a way that they could have given you the wrap-up on all of those other characters, and they didn't do it. So, like, you don't get to find out that after Fred dies, Percy helps George run the Weasleys' Wizard Wheezes.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Definitely.
And you don't get to find out that Percy basically, like, became a jokester. And it wasn't the same as having Fred, but he did the best he could. That they could have done.
Especially for the introduced characters, I guess. Maybe not for, like, the kids and stuff, but, like, for the characters we've grown up knowing.
Yes.
That I can definitely get behind. Especially after the, what's it called? Cursed Child.
Yes. Yeah, well, things like that McGonagall became the headmistress
Yes, that could.
at
This is all
Hogwarts.
things that could be done like in a couple of paragraphs. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, you could easily have thrown in like Harry talking for 2 paragraphs and you show quick scenes like Percy at the store running things with George and McGonagall settling into Dumbledore's desk.
Yeah.
You know, like little things that like would have been like 2 or 3 second scenes
Oh yeah.
that would have
definitely.
given you closure for that character.
Yes, definitely. So now we've talked extensively for like 2 hours about the differences between the films and stuff. I have one question for you,
Yes.
and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
It's a double barrel question.
Okay.
What is your favourite book, and what is your favourite movie?
Ooh. That's a tricky one. Let's see. Favorite book, I think for me, is actually probably Deathly Hallows.
For the book.
Yeah, for the book.
fair enough.
Even though it was so dense, it's my favorite book just because I'm one of those people where I love a good story. I love all the ups and downs. But for me, one of the things that can ruin a book is the ending.
That's fair.
For me, the ending is just as important as anything else. If you give me a book with a weak ending, it will never be one of my favorites. And I feel like the book Deathly Hallows was an amazing ending to the story. Like the way she tied everything together, the way everything fit, all of the bits and pieces happening after so many storylines and so many years of the story coming out for us. It was just a fantastic ending to the story. In terms of the movies, it's harder, especially after we've just gone over all of our problems with the differences between the different movies.
Yes. But at least for me, there's one that stands out as the best one of the lot for me.
Yeah,
So, do you want me to do your?
No,
mine
go
first,
ahead, because
or-
I'm still thinking.
Okay. For my personal favourite book, as we've already talked about, it is The Half-Blood Prince. I completely adore Deathly Hallows too. I don't know what it is about The Half-Blood Prince, but I love it so much. And I think it's just Harry maybe having some good times for a little bit.
Yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
him actually enjoying his year. He is like... And there's obviously still stuff going on, and it's terrifying, but there's a lot going on. It's a good story. It all comes together for me. I enjoy it.
I can see that.
My favourite movie is The Prisoner of Azkaban. Yes, it might be missing the Marauders backstory, which hurts, but out of the movies, it's a very good, strong movie on its own for me.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, for me, I was thinking either the first movie, the very first movie, simply because it was they had to set everything up.
Yes, I can definitely get behind that too.
So I think they actually did a pretty good job setting up the world, and the fact that Harry's never seen it and is coming into it for the first time, and all of his awe and everything, and just the kind of people that the characters are. I think they did a good job setting all of that up.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, like the first couple of movies really do a good job of only changing what was necessary.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then I feel like for me, Prisoner of Azkaban would probably be second, and I feel like for me it's because of the poignant moments that you get that are Harry's backstory.
Yeah.
Like, we all know it's sad from the very get-go. He's an orphan living with his uncle and aunt who hate him. But, like, finding out more about exactly what happened and finding out about the betrayal and the tragedy of it, even though it's not as much detail as there is in the book. I think I feel like that they did a really good job with that overall.
That's totally fair.
And then again, I think the tragedy of Goblet of Fire is part of it. Like, even though they didn't show it as effectively as I would have preferred, I feel like considering how much stuff they had to cram into the movie, they did an okay job.
All right. Well, on that massive talk of Harry Potter, I want to listen. I want to listen to the Harry Potter books again. I'll tell you that. So that might happen after I get through every other audiobook I have to listen to. Oh boy. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed our massive nerding out over these books that we love and these films that we sometimes love.
That's an accurate description.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, we'll talk to you about something that isn't Harry Potter very soon.
Yes.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Geek Thyself. Don't forget to check out all the other amazing content on the Nerdsmith Network. If you have any questions for either of us, you can get in contact with us on Twitter at geek_thyself.
You can also email us at geekthyself@nerdsmith.org. And please don't forget to go to iTunes and leave us a review, or also go anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
We'll be back next week with another informative and fun episode.
And until then, don't forget to geek thyself.